distinguished guests, colleagues, members of the press, it is my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Nigel Clark and his delegation to Ethiopia. This visit marks the IMF's second high-level engagement with Ethiopia in 2025, following the visit of the Managing Director, Ms. Kristalina Georgieva, in February. It reflects the depth of our partnership and the seriousness with which both sides approach Ethiopia's economic reform agenda. It has also been a privilege to engage with a partner who brings deep public sector experience as well. Mr. Clark's leadership as the Minister of Finance in Jamaica provides valuable lessons on how homegrown reforms can succeed when they are nationally owned, evidence-based, and institutionally grounded. Over the past days, Mr. Clark has held extensive discussions with the Prime Minister, senior government leadership, and the economic reform team. We also traveled together to visit the Kosha hydroelectric power project, one of the largest power projects in our country's history, second only to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Kosha reflects our strategic focus on high-impact public investment, strong national ownership, and sustainable long-term growth. As you are aware, Ethiopia is undertaking a comprehensive economic reform program, which is aimed at stabilizing the macroeconomy, fostering private sector-led growth, modernizing institutions, and unlocking new sources of productivity and growth. To support this transition, we have worked closely with our development partners and mobilized development financing over the past year. As part of this broader effort, we entered into a 4-year IMF-supported program, which is designed to address long-standing macroeconomic imbalances and support the transition to a more resilient and market-oriented economy. I am pleased to know that we have now completed the staff mission for the 4th review of the extended credit facility, and we expect a staff-level agreement to be concluded soon and signed shortly, paving the way for the next phase of our cooperation. With the continued support of the IMF, World Bank, and Official Creditor Committee, and our partners, we are registering encouraging results across key macroeconomic indicators. Inflation. One of our most persistent challenges, inflation has continued a downward trajectory because of coordinated monetary and fiscal policy and real sector productivity as well. As of November, inflation declined to 10.9% from 16% a year earlier. This progress is meaningful not only at the macroeconomic level, but also for households and businesses across the country. Foreign exchange market. The liberalization of the exchange rate has helped correct long-standing distortions. The market has stabilized and is now operating with greater flexibility. Foreign exchange supply to the market, particularly to the private sector, has significantly improved, and we expect market efficiency to continue strengthening as reform is deepened and sustained. Regarding government revenue mobilization, we recognized early that reversing the decline on domestic revenue was essential for fiscal sustainability. Strengthening domestic revenue alongside improvement in expenditure efficiency remains central to correcting fiscal imbalances. A strong and resilient economy requires reliable and sustainable domestic source of financing. I am pleased to report that reforms have delivered a strong turnaround in this area. Government domestic revenue collection increased by 61.7% to Ethiopian birr 1.3 trillion birr in 2024-25, which is the general government. The tax to GDP ratio, which has been declining for nearly a decade, increased from 6.2 to 7.8%. In the current fiscal year, federal tax collections remain broadly within expected range, with notable overperformance in several domestic tax categories. Regarding trade performance, exchange rate reform has also supported export performance by reducing illicit trade and encouraging the repatriation of earnings through formal channels. As a result, total goods export earnings increased by 119.2% to USD 8.3 billion. one of the clearest indications that the reforms are beginning to take root. Alongside this achievement, we have placed a strong emphasis on protecting households from the short-term adjustment cost of reform. We shifted away from broad, untargeted subsidies toward more focused support for low-income households. As a result, poverty-targeted spending increased significantly, with major allocations to health, education, and productive safety net programs, including its recent expansion. These measures, combined with temporarily targeted subsidies, ensure that our reform efforts remain inclusive and socially responsible. In closing, Ethiopia's long-term vision to achieve middle-income status in the medium term, reduce poverty sustainably, and improve the living standard of all its citizens. Mr. Clark, we are delighted to welcome you to Ethiopia and deeply appreciate the constructive partnerships with the International Monetary Fund. We look forward to continuing this important work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Shide. It is my first visit to Ethiopia in my capacity as Deputy Managing Director of the IMF, and it has been a very productive visit. I've had the opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister, to meet with Minister Shide, the Governor of the Central Bank, Minister of Planning and Development, and the economic team in general. I've also had the opportunity to meet with members of the private sector, and I'll be meeting with development partners and other stakeholders later this afternoon. The occasion has allowed me to see firsthand the impact of Ethiopia's historic economic reforms. Ethiopia's homegrown economic reform program is nothing short of impressive. This is a reform program that the IMF is very keen and happy to support, and a reform program that has been built around three primary pillars. The first pillar is having a more modern, flexible, market-determined foreign exchange mechanism that helps in price discovery and that allows for foreign exchange to be available to those who need it in a manner that is efficient. The second pillar concerns modernizing the monetary policy framework to one that is based on interest rate tools as opposed to other means. And by modernizing the monetary policy framework, providing an institutional mechanism by which inflation can be brought under control. And the third element is to ensure that Ethiopia benefits from a sustainable source of revenues that can finance expenditure in health, education, infrastructure, and on protection of the vulnerable. The fundamental nature of the reforms is sort of geared towards a transformation of the Ethiopian economy and providing the platform on which growth can be sustained over the long term to the benefit of the Ethiopian people. And as Minister Shide mentioned, the results are therefore all to see. The extended credit facility was entered into less than 18 months ago, probably closer to, around about, in that region. And in such a short space of time, we have seen dramatic improvements in major macroeconomic variables. As Minister Shide mentioned, foreign exchange reserves are substantially up. Persons who need foreign exchange are able to get foreign exchange. The inflation rate, which was at 30%, has been substantially reduced, and the latest inflation outcome in November, as Mr. Shide mentioned, was 10.9%, a remarkable reduction. We've seen export earnings have increased dramatically, and goods exports in particular have increased significantly over the prior year. As far as public finances are concerned, as Minister Shide mentioned, tax revenues have performed in a way that they haven't performed in the recent past, increasing significantly year over year, and as a percentage of GDP, as Minister Shide mentioned, reversing the downward trend over the previous decade. These are all incredibly important achievements of the economic reform program, and achievements on which Ethiopia can continue to build. Having had such a tremendous start, the emphasis must be on continuity and sustaining the reform momentum, and even further achievements that would be difficult to envisage now will become possible through the sustaining of the reform momentum. The reforms, as mentioned earlier, are geared towards transitioning to a private sector-led growth model where the dynamism and entrepreneurialism and innovation of the private sector can provide jobs and opportunities for Ethiopian people and help in improving standards of living, while also ensuring that Ethiopia remains resilient to economic shock. So it's a pleasure to be here and to, in my presence, to support Ethiopia's reform effort and, you know, to the effort of all Ethiopians who are vested in the success of this reform program.
Thank you so much, David, for Reuters. My question is to Mr. Ahmed. First question is, when do you think Ethiopia will complete its debt reward for restructuring program? Second question is, when do you think Ethiopia will start a more restricted talk with bond holders in regards to Eurobond restructuring?
Good, thank you very much. On debt restructuring, we are progressing very well with OCC countries. Most of them have already signed the MOU, and what is left is completion of specific agreement with each country and with each financial institutions, and that work is progressing. And we expect at the end of this year's Ethiopian fiscal year, we will be able to finalize. On bond holders, we are always ready and engaging through our advisors and ourselves. This is a work in progress, so we'll continue that engagement as well.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. To both of you, the World Bank recently said that the poverty rate is expecting to rise this year to 43%. How to make sure that those reforms also are not hurting the people in Ethiopia, and how to tackle the rising poverty level in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The fundamental objective of our reform, which has been implemented on the previous years, is basically to diversify the source of growth in the economy, to make government delivery more efficient, as well as to encourage private sector growth. So we can witness in agricultural sector development, smallholder agriculture, both whether they are pastoralists or farmers are benefiting from significant agricultural growth. Government is also investing a lot on basic infrastructure, on education, on health, on road, as well as on energy generation and transmission lines. All what we are doing in terms of development work is significantly benefiting the masses. And through our social protection massive programs, we are benefiting millions and millions of Ethiopians to be resilient and to be productive. So as a government, we believe that what we are doing is significantly benefiting the masses. It is an equitable development, it's an inclusive development, And this is the path we are working on. Even during this significant macroeconomic reform, protection of people with lower income group has been at the center of our reform. That's why we have also increased salary. Second time we have increased salary. That's why we are investing a lot on safety net program, whether it is rural or urban. So we believe that this is benefiting households across the country. Thank you.
There's few things that endanger the prospects of the poor more than macroeconomic instability. If the fiscal accounts are unstable and the government doesn't have the resources to spend on health and education and protection of the poor are even more vulnerable than they would have been before. So ensuring that the economy is stable and at the same time ensuring that the means of supporting the poor are targeted and not wasteful, going to segments of the economy that don't need that support, are all aligned with helping to improve the prospects of the most vulnerable. The homegrown economic reform program that Ethiopia has pioneered and that we have the privilege of supporting is geared towards ensuring that those who are most vulnerable are able to receive targeted levels of support. And the expectation is that over time, this will improve the circumstances and the conditions of the most vulnerable in the Ethiopian society.
Okay, we have time for one more question? No? Thank you so much.
Thank you. ወይም IMF በመባሉ የሚታወቀው ምክትል ሊቀመንበር የሆኑት ይፋዊ የሥራ ጉብኝት እያደረጉ ነው የሚገኙት በኢትዮጵያ። በይፋዊ የሥራ ጉብኝታቸውም ከክቡር ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ ጋር ተገናኝተው በዝርዝር ተወያይተዋል። እንዲሁም የማክሮ ኢኮኖሚ የሚሰሩ ተቋማት ኃላፊዎች ያሉበት የኢኮኖሚክ ማኔጅመንት ቲም ጋርም ተወያይተዋል። እንዲሁም ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ካሉ የተለያዩ የፕራይቬት ሴክተር ተወካዮችም ጋር በዝርዝር ተወያይተዋል። እንዲሁም የኮሻ ሃይድሮኤሌክትሪክ ፓወር ዳም ቦታው ድረስ በመገኘት ጉብኝት አድርገዋል። ይሄ እንግዲህ ከፍተኛ የአይኤምኤፍ የሥራ ኃላፊ በኢትዮጵያ ጉብኝት ሲያደርጉ ሁለተኛው ነው። የተቋሙ ሊቀመንበር በዚሁ አመት በፈረንጆቹ አመት ውስጥ ጉብኝት አድርገው ነበረ። ይሄ ጉብኝት የሚያሳየው የዓለም አቀፉ የገንዘብ ድርጅት እና በኢትዮጵያ መካከል ያለው የልማት ትብብር በኢኮኖሚክ ሪፎርም ትብብር በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እያደገ የመጣ መሆኑን የሚያሳይ ነው። በተለይ ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ እያካሄደች ያለችው ሁሉን አቀፍ የተሟላ የማክሮ ኢኮኖሚ ማሻሻያ እጅግ በጣም ውጤታማ በሆነ መልኩ የተተገበረና የባለፉት አንድ አመት ተኩል ውጤት በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ኤክስፖርትን በማሳደግ የዋጋ ንረትን በመቀነስ የመንግስት ገቢን በማሻሻል የተረጋጋ የውጭ ምንዛሪ በግብይት ላይ ተመሰረተ በገበያ መርህ ላይ ተመሰረተ የተረጋጋ የውጭ ምንዛሪ ተመን እንዲኖር በማድረግ ረገድ ከፍተኛ አስተዋጽኦ አበርክተዋል። በዚህም ኢትዮጵያ ከዓለም አቀፍ የገንዘብ ድርጅት እንዲሁም ከዓለም ባንክም እንዲሁም ከአበዳሪ ሀገሮች ጋር የተሳካ ትብብር እያደረገች ነው የምትገኘው። በእዳ ቅነሳ ወይም እዳን ከማሸጋሸን አንጻር ስኬታማ የሆነ ድርድርም አድርጋ ኤምኦዩም ተፈርሞ የማጠቃለያ ስራዎች ከእያንዳንዱ አገርና ተቋም ፋይናንስ ተቋማት ጋር እየተካሄደ ነው የሚገኘው። የዓለም አቀፉ የገንዘብ ድርጅት በኢትዮጵያ የሚሰጠውን ድጋፍ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ አጠናክሮ የቀጠለበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። እንዲሁም በዓለም ባንክ በኩል መደበኛ የልማት ፕሮግራሞችና እንዲሁም ከማክሮ ኢኮኖሚ ጋር የተገናኙ የፖሊሲ ፋይናንሲንግ ድጋፎችን በከፍተኛ ደረጃ በየጊዜው ተግባራዊ የተደረጉ ነው የሚገኙት። ይሄም በታሪካችን ትልቁንና ከፍተኛውን የሆነውን የልማት አጋርነት ድጋፍ ለሪፎርማችን በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ማሻሻል የተቻለበት ነው። የኢትዮጵያ መንግስትም የሪፎርሙ የራሱ ሪፎርም ነው። እነዚህ ተቋሞች ድጋፍ ነው የሚሰጡን። ይሄ ሪፎርም ባለፉት 7 አመታት ነው የተጀመረው። በተለይ ጠንካራና ዘላቂ እድገትን ማረጋገጥ፣ የእድገት ምንጮችን የማስፋት፣ ሁሉም በእድገት ላይ ሚና ያላቸው ኃይሎች በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ውጤታማ እንዲሆኑ ማስቻል፣ በዚህ ሂደትም የግሉን ዘርፍ ውጤታማነት እና በኢኮኖሚ እድገት ውስጥ ያለውን ድርሻ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ለማሳደግ እየተሰራ ያለው ስራ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ውጤታማ ነው የሆነው። በግብርናው ዘርፍ እጅግ በጣም ከፍተኛ ውጤት እየመጣ ነው የሚገኘው። የኢንዱስትሪ የምርት አቅማችንን ለማሳደግ የተሰራው ስራም በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ውጤት እያመጣን ያለው፣ ኤክስፖርታችን በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እያደገን ያለው፣ ገቢያችንን በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እያደገን ያለው፣ አጠቃላይ ደግሞ የባንኮች በአጠቃላይ በኢኮኖሚ የሚሰጡት የብድር አቅርቦት በተለይ ደግሞ ለግሉ ዘርፍ የሚሰጡት የብድር አቅርቦት በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ነው ያደገው። የባንኪንግ ዘርፍ ጤናማነትና ውጤታማነት በከፍተኛ ደረጃ የተሻሻለ ነው ያለው። በሞኔታሪ ፖሊሲም ዘመናዊ ሞኔታሪ ፖሊሲን በመከተል ረገድ የተጀመረው ስራ ኢንፍሌሽንን በመቀነስ አጠቃላይ የፋይናንስ ዘርፉን በማሳደግ ረገድ እና ሬጉሌተሪ አቅሙን ከማሳደግ አንጻር በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ውጤት የመጣበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። የማዕድን ዘርፍ ልማታችንን ከማነቃቃት አንጻር የተሰሩ ያሉ ስራዎችም እንዲሁ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ውጤት እያመጡ ነው። በቱሪዝም ዘርፍ አጠቃላይ ኢትዮጵያ ከፍተኛ የቱሪዝም ሀብት ያላት ሀገር ነች። የቱሪዝም መዳረሻ ቦታዎችን ማልማት፣ የቱሪዝም ሀብቶቻችንን በከፍተኛ ደረጃ መንከባከብና ውጤታማነት በማረጋገጥ ረገድ በጣም ብዙ ውጤት ነው የመጣ ያለው። በኮንፈረንስ ቱሪዝም ብቻ ባለፉት አመታት በጣም ዓለም አቀፍ ብዙ ኮንፈረንሶች በአዲስ አበባ በስፋት መካሄድ ጀምረዋል። በከተማ ልማት ዘርፍም በተለይ የኮሪዶር ልማቱ አጠቃላይ የተቀናጀ የቤቶች ልማት እንዲሁም የስራ እድል ፈጠራ፣ የከተሞች መሰረተ ልማትን የማሳደግ በከተሞች የስራ እድል የመፍጠር ጉዳይ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ውጤት የመጣበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። ለዚህም ትልቁ ማሳያ አዲስ አበባ ነች። በአዲስ አበባ በወንዝ ዳርቻ ልማት፣ በኮሪዶር ልማት አጠቃላይ በሃውሲንግ ኳሊቲ በማሻሻል ረገድ በደሃ ተኮር የሆነውም የቤቶች አቅርቦት በማሳደግና አጠቃላይ ለደሃው ማህበረሰብም ሆነ የስራ እድል ፈጠራ ላይ የተሰራ ያለው ስራ በጣም ብዙ ውጤት እያመጣ ነው ያለው። በአጠቃላይ ኢትዮጵያ የዚህ የታሪካዊ የኢኮኖሚ ሪፎርሙ ከሀገራችን የህዝብ ብዛት እና የኢኮኖሚ አቅም እንዲሁም ጠንካራ ሀገረ መንግስት ከመኖሩ አንጻር ጋር ተገናኝቶ በዓለም ደረጃ ከፍተኛ ግምት የሚሰጠውና በጥሩ ጎዳና ላይ እየተካሄደ ያለና ትልቅ ውጤትም እያመጣ ያለ ነው። በዚህ አቅሙ የኢትዮጵያን ኢኮኖሚ ብቻ ሳይሆን ኢትዮጵያ ከብዙ ሀገሮች ጋር ስለምትጎራበት ቀጠናዊ የኢኮኖሚ ትስስሩም ተጠናክሮ እየቀጠለ ስለሆነ አብዛኛው የምንሰራቸው የመሰረተ ልማት ስራዎች ከጎረቤቶቻችን ጋር የሚያስተሳስሩን ስለሆነ የኢነርጂ ልማት እንዲሁም የዲጂታል ኢንፍራስትራክቸራችን፣ የመንገድ ልማታችን፣ የባቡር ልማታችን በሙሉ ከቀጠናው ጋር የሚያስተሳስረን ነው። የኢትዮጵያ አየር መንገድም ቀጠናውንና አፍሪካን በማስተሳሰር ረገድ ትልቅ ሚና ነው የተወጣ ያለው። ስለዚህ በዚህ ረገድ የኢትዮጵያ የእድገት አቅም ትልቅ በመሆኑ አንጻር ይሄ አቅም ለቀጠናውም ጭምር ትልቅ የእድገት አስተዋጽኦ የሚያበረክት መሆኑን ነው ዓለም አቀፍ አጋር ድርጅቶች እየገለጹ ያሉት። አጠቃላይ ይሄ ደግሞ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እየተመራ ያለ በክቡር ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትራችን በአጠቃላይ መንግስት ለዚህ ሪፎርም ትልቅ ትኩረት ሰጥቶ የራሱ ሪፎርም እና በራሱ እምነት ትልቅ ውጤት እያመጣ ያለበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። እንዲሁም በተለይ የህዝቡ በልማት ላይ ያለው ተሳትፎም በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ነው ያደገ ያለው። በግሪን ሌጋሲ ኢኒሼቲቭ ብዙ ሚሊዮን ኢትዮጵያውያኖች 48 ቢሊዮን የችግኝ ተከላ ማካሄድ ችለናል ባለፉት 7 አመታት። ብዙ የልማት ስራዎች በፕራይቬት ሴክተር ድጋፍ ጭምር ኢኖቬቲቭ በሆነ ፋይናንሲንግ መስራት የተቻለበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። ስለዚህ የመንግስትና የግል አጋርነት፣ የመንግስትና የህዝብ ትብብር፣ የመንግስትና የግሉ ዘርፍ ትብብር ተጠናክሮ የቀጠለ ነው ያለው። ስለዚህ የእድገት ምንጫችንን በማስፋት ምርታማነታችንን በማሳደግ ከማክሮ ኢኮኖሚ ሪፎርሙ ጋር ተገናኝቶ ውጤታማ የልማት ስራ ጎዳና ላይ የምትገኝ መሆኑን ነው የኢትዮጵያ ኢኮኖሚ ሁኔታ የሚያሳየው። በዚህም የህዝቡ ተጠቃሚነት በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እያደገ ነው ያለው። ኢትዮጵያ በዓለም አቀፍ መድረክ ያላት ተደማጭነት በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እያደገ ነው የመጣው። በቅርቡ በጂ20 የተካሄደው ስብሰባ ላይ የነበረ ሚና በጣም ከፍተኛ ነው። በሌሎች ዓለም አቀፍ መድረኮችም ኢትዮጵያ ከሳይዟና ውጤታማ ስራ ከመስራቷ አንጻር ጠንካራ ተቋም የተገነባበት ያለ ሀገረ መንግስት ከመሆኑ አንጻር ለዓለም ኢኮኖሚ፣ ለቀጠናው ሰላም፣ ለአጠቃላይ ኢኮኖሚክ ኢንቴግሬሽኑ ትልቅ አስተዋጽኦ የሚያበረክት ኢኮኖሚ ነው። ለዚህም ነው እንደዚህ አይነት ስኬታማ ጉብኝቶች የተካሄዱ ያሉት ማለት ነው። በቀጣይም የኢትዮጵያን ኢኮኖሚ የሚያሳድጉ የተለያዩ ተጨማሪ ኢንቨስትመንቶች በመንግስትና በግሉ ዘርፍ አጋርነት እንዲሁም ደግሞ የኢንቨስትመንትን በማስፋት ረገድ የግሉን ዘርፍ በማበረታታት ብዙ ስራ የሚሰራ ይሆናል። ይሄ አጠቃላይ የምንሰራው የማክሮ ኢኮኖሚ ሪፎርም እድገታችንን በከፍተኛ ደረጃ የሚያሳልጥ ነው የሚሆነው። የግሉን ዘርፍ ሚና በከፍተኛ ደረጃ የሚያሳድግ ነው የሚሆነው። ለግሉ ዘርፍ ምቹ የማክሮ ኢኮኖሚክ ሁኔታ ብቻ ሳይሆን አገልግሎት በማሻሻል በግሉ ዘርፍ የሚነሱ የተለያዩ ጉዳዮችንም መፍትሄ በመስጠት ለግሉ ዘርፍ ምቹ የሆነ ሬጉሌተሪ ኢንቫይሮንመንት እንዲኖር በማድረግ ረገድም መንግስት ብዙ ሪፎርም እየሰራ ያለበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። በዚህ ረገድም ስራዎች ተጠናክሮ የሚቀጥሉ ይሆናል ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ የኢትዮጵያ ኢኮኖሚ እድገት ከፍተኛ ተስፋ የተጣለበትና በዚሁ ተጠናክሮ እንዲቀጥል መንግስት ቁርጠኛ መሆኑ የተረጋገጠበት ነው። አመሰግናለሁ።